You can get one. Do you need a break, Mark? Are you ready to go?
Oh, I'm good. Uh, Hi everybody. I'm Mark Underwood. I earned my electrical AP. I guess it's been a few years ago now, and so I'd like to go over both what the requirements are for that and kind of show what I actually submitted. Um, so I'm going to share the NMA's requirements. Well, maybe I am. Bob, can I share my screen?
Where's Bob?
Well, if you go to the NMRA website, under the achievement program, you can find the official requirements for all of the categories. Oh, wait, now I can do it. Let's see. So here is the official requirements, and I like to think of the electrical seems really complicated, but it's actually probably one of the simplest APs to earn, in my opinion. I might be a little biased given my education, but the requirements are actually pretty straightforward, and it's a lot of stuff that you have to do in order to have a running train, a running layout in the first place. So unlike some of the other APs, it's really largely a matter of documentation of things you're going to end up doing anyway. So let's go through this really quickly. Part A is that you have to build an electrical control system on layout. And this can be as simple as just a regular plain old DC wiring system, or DCC, which is even easier in some respects. And there's a few requirements. One is that you have to be able to control two different trains in both directions. But this can be as easy as having a passing siding that you can cut the power to. So you can run one train onto the passing siding, cut the power to that siding with a switch, an electrical switch that is, run the other train by on the main, and then turn the power back onto the siding and have the other train, the original train, go by. It's again, it's one of those things that sounds complex, but when you get into actually wiring it, it's pretty simple. There are 6 things that you have to also have on this working layout. For if you're doing a DC wiring system, you have to have 5 blocks defined. They did not have to be connected to each other, but I'm going to try to stay really high level here and not get into the details of exactly how you do these things. There's tons of documentation, and we could do a whole year's worth of full clinics going into a lot of the details, but I just want to give you the flavor. So if you have questions on, specifically, what do you mean 5 blocks? We should probably take that kind of stuff offline, just due to time requirements. So for DC, you got to have 5 blocks. For DCC, it just has to work. You need a passing siding. You need some way of turning a train around, either a reversing loop, a Y, or a turntable for the engine, or a transfer table, something that you can use to turn a train around. You need a 3-track yard with a switching lead that you can use that doesn't foul up the main. You need a place to store at least 2 locomotives. And these can literally just be little stub tracks that you can cut the power to. Again, not complex, even though it may read like it. And then you need a power supply with a fuse, or some other protective device, circuit breaker, short indicator. And pretty much any of your commercial power supply devices have already got this built in for you. So very simple to provide. One thing I like about the way they've written this, there are a lot of notes in these requirements that spell out how simple the solution to these, or the construction of these can be. So be sure you read this carefully and follow the rule up here at the top that says, don't read too much into it. Just provide what's asked for, and that's all you need. Then you've got to do similar to the civil, where you have to do construct 3 different types of track by hand. You need to wire and operate at least 3 of this long list of items here. And again, it's stuff you're probably going to have to do anyway for your layout. A turnout, crossing, a crossover. Get into some more of the complex, interesting things for people who are doing things like dual gauge track and things like that will allow them to include some of those things. So you got to pick 3 of these and show that you can wire them and power them and run a train through them. And then they've got another long list. This is part C of a little more complex items. Again, some of them are pretty simple. This is where you can kind of show off something interesting that you did. Turnout position indicators, track occupancy indicators, cab control. So you can have at least two guys operating your track. An engine terminal, lighting, which would be the locomotive lighting. Grade crossings, block signaling, displays. So, if you want to like light up a billboard or, for example, chase lights on the movie theater marquee, something like that in the scenery. And then you can also count if you install a decoder in a locomotive, that can be one. So again, they provide a long list of things to give you ideas, and you don't have to specifically do things that are on this list. If you have something that's kind of a similar complexity that they didn't specifically list, you can do that. They're just trying to kind of give you a buffet of things to spark your idea to do 3 somewhat more advanced items. And then the final part is just to provide schematic drawings of both the layout and the wiring items that you did under sections B and C. And again, this is something you should be doing anyway, because you're going to have problems on your layout. You're going to need to debug them, and a schematic is priceless for that. So again, it's just documenting what you did. So in some drawings, they can be done on the computer. They can be hand drawn with a pencil. If your layout's large, you can provide sort of an overview and then show a detailed drawing of how you wired a typical turnout or a typical passing siding. So you don't have to like draw every single thing on a large layout. So those are the requirements. Basically, you got to wire up a layout that works, including a few detailed specific track work items, and do 3 interesting things with the electrical system, and then document that. So I'm going to show, and I apologize, this is a draft version. I don't know what happened to the final version that I submitted, but I've misplaced it somewhere. But this is the documentation that I wrote, and this is probably a bit of overkill. So basically, I had a summary of the electrical control system and the items that I picked, and a little brief explanation of each one, and where to find it on the schematic, which the schematic drawing was a separate drawing. Then Then you got the second part. I gave details on wiring size and lengths and color coding, which are not strictly necessary, but it's really helped me when I've had problems to go back and read through this. Talked about how I hooked up the Digitrax DCC, LocoNet. Then I got into those wiring techniques, and this is where I used actually just used PowerPoint to draw these wiring, and I'll just use the one turnout as an example. I just show where the track bus comes in, and I have a switch to switch the polarity on the frog of the turnout to power it from either one of the tracks, and then a little explanation of how that works. There is so much of this documentation available on the internet. It's crazy to learn how to do this and then provide the documentation. Here's a crossing. This is literally as simple with a commercial piece of crossing track work. You basically just hook up two wires and to each path through the crossing, and you're done. Very simple to do. Documented a crossover was my third one. And then I went into each of the features that I used, which was track occupancy. I have a current-based detector on one rail of a section of track, goes into a detector, goes into LocoNet, and I can see it. Also did block detection and staging a little differently. So that was the second one. Had a mechanical display item that I put together. It was actually a gate that would move. So each one of these, here's the DCC. I took a picture of it and gave a little explanation. And that's the locomotive that I put it in, or one very similar to it. Command control throttle bus. If you're using DCC, this is as simple as following the manufacturer's instructions. This is how I wired up I have multiple UP5 panels where I can plug in wired throttles. Again, just following the Digitrax instructions. Here I gave a little drawing of the layout and showed where those were located. And then I mentioned having the big layout drawing, and then having this is for section D here. You know, here's a typical section of track, a block. Here's some of the special cases where I have a walk-through bridge. How I wired that. Here's here's one of the powered turnout again. And then I had the schematic drawings, which unfortunately somehow I've misplaced as well. I mean, the summary of this is this, like I said, this is really one of the simplest APs to earn. You got to do this stuff anyway to have a working layout. All you got to do is just read what the requirements are step by step. Pay close attention to the commentary they have in there about how simple it can be for each one of those requirements, and don't overthink it. You know, they want to allow you to do something really cool if that's what you are interested in, but they don't want to require you to do something really complex if, you know, you're just not much of an electrical person and you know, you'd rather spend your time on scenery. You can still do some pretty basic things and meet the requirements to earn this. It's mostly about documenting what you're doing anyway, and you really should be doing that for yourself. And then all you got to do is take what you're doing for yourself and turn it in.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you, Mark. I appreciate you talking about that. It's not really that. It looks complicated, but it's not. And if you have any questions, you can ask Mark or any one of us. Does anybody have a question? I'm looking out the room here. I don't see any hands raised. Anybody on Zoom who's got a question for Mark?
What's a gauntlet turnout?
Also known as a gantlet turnout. It's easiest way to describe it is it's dual gauge. But it's really where you have two separate tracks that come together, but they don't.
Well, I know what a gauntlet is, and I know what a turnout is, and I just never seen a reference to a turnout in the middle of a gauntlet.
Yeah, me neither.